what's up you guys, this is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on the rundown, you're in for a shocker, because we're taking a look at the Wicked Witch of the Warframes, Volt. Now, I feel like I need to clarify a few things here. While I have said that I hated him, and on many occasions refer to him as a witch, at no point have I ever said that he was a bad Warframe. Highly mobile with a small splash of control, completely ignore his in-game description, because Volt's kit is capable of supercharging almost any weapon he can get his hands on, like the mother effing witch he is. Now, if you didn't pick him as your starter Warframe, first off, good job, you're totally winning at life. You'll be able to pick up his components for 15,000 credits, and his blueprint for 35,000 credits, all in the Tenno Lab of your clan dojo, providing that the appropriate research has been completed. And if by some manner of witchcraft you feel the need to have him in your arsenal ASAP, you can always pick him up in the market pre-built, along with the Catalyst and Warframe slot for 75 plat. Okay, this is where the magic happens. Volt's first ability is the Shocker. Actually, I think it's just Shock. He lets loose an electrical arc which deals damage and stuns his target. At max rank, this ability will chain onto an additional 5 targets, dealing damage and stunning them as well. Now, one thing to mention is that each arc has a 100% chance to proc the electrical status, which causes additional electrical arcs, dealing 50% of the ability's damage and stunning those targets as well. Now, while this may be able to strike down targets at lower levels, as you progress through the star chart, you will find that this is quite useful as short-term crowd control, buying you a little more time to thin out the crowd or to lay down an electric shield or two. It's also a great initiation tool when rushing into a crowd using speed. Speaking of, speed is Volt's second ability. With a little bit of supercharging, at max rank, Volt grants a 50% boost to attack and movement speed to himself and any nearby teammates. While this is an amazing buff, allowing Volt and his squad to quickly dash to objectives or close in to speedily hack through enemies using melee, it honestly makes me a bit sick. Field of view distortion combined with motion blur for extended amounts of time do not make me a happy camper. However, as buffs go, it's pretty good, as it tailors itself to long and close range combat, allowing you to gain distance and quickly find cover, or rush right into the thick of battle. Volt's third ability is Electric Shield. Now this one is definitely my favorite of the bunch, and by far the most witchy. It creates a barrier that blocks all incoming bullets and projectiles, but it definitely doesn't stop there. At max rank, firing through the shield grants all primary and secondary weapons 50% bonus electrical damage, as well as a 200% boost to critical damage. Do note that the electrical damage is additive and will not combine with any additional elements. Firing through multiple shields will add additional instances of the electrical damage, but will not add additional critical bonuses. Firing through the electrical shield also has some very interesting interactions with certain weapons. Weapons with damage fall off, lose damage fall off. Beam weapons gain an additional 70-meter range from its contact point with the shield, and can be stretched further by firing through several well-placed shields. It has also been noted that beam weapons attain hit-scan-like speeds when fired through. And as for the witchiest thing of all, regardless of what plane you're on, aka rifted or non-rifted, firing through the shields will allow you to hit targets as if you were on the same plane. A couple quick things to note: while rockets and other explosive weapons will detonate upon hitting the shields, the AoE blast can still pass through. Also, the way you face will determine the position of the shields, so pitching a tent in a Warframe is totally viable. Now, Volt's fourth and final ability is Overload. Volt releases several pulses of electrical energy, shocking surrounding enemies and causing electrical devices to overload. Now, first things first, each pulse has a 100% chance to proc the electrical status, stunning surrounding enemies and gaining extra damage for each electrical arc generated. In addition, all overloaded devices will emit several electrical arcs, damaging enemies within their range. Interesting thing to note here is that number 1, the only affected electrical devices seem to be lights. And number 2, once the surrounding devices are depleted, they can no longer be overloaded. Now, to be honest with you, this ability is a bit hit or miss, as a decent amount of its damage is dependent on when and where it's being used. It'll deal more damage the more enemies it can target, due to the electrical procs arcing to additional enemies. And the bonus damage from surrounding lights are nice, but it's a one-time use, and requires enemies to be within the range of those devices. In addition, the pulse travels fairly slowly, leaving you vulnerable to damage before it's able to stun surrounding targets. So, be sure you're standing someplace safe before you unload. So, all in all, while I wouldn't categorize Volt as a top tier frame, he's definitely got a decent mix of utility and mild control that's beneficial for both group and solo play. Frankly, his electrical shield, when placed properly, is probably one of the best defensive measures in game, as it has no set absorption limit and even provides some substantial offensive bonuses to primary and secondary weapons. Shock makes for a great short duration stun, especially when being rushed by a group of melee units, and Speed, while sickening, is quite fun and addictive, kind of like speed. So if you're in the mood for a little witchery, Volt comes fully equipped with his own wizard hat and robe. So thank you all for watching another episode of The Rundown. Be sure to check out my previous rundown on Mesa, as well as my video on the top 5 tips to combat player burnout. Now, don't forget to do all the things I ask you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, stay tuned for more witch hunting here at A Gay Guy Plays. Now, if you thought I was going to tell you the story on why I hate on Volt so much, you are clearly mistaken. But come on, look at him, he's all jelly-like. If that isn't witchy, then I don't know what is.